Now, that's not to say they're not going to do it. If we get this to the point where it's okay and acceptable and they're not going to be chastised by their peers or the government or whoever else for doing it, they will be literally fighting each other fang and claw to get at it, begging for pieces of it to work with. Watch and see. But for right now, we can't get them interested. Thank you. All right. Whoops, sorry, got to go back. So, right now, everything that I've just shown you, all these physiological differences, all these differences don't matter a bit to science. Not a bit. Because why? Because they can explain them away. How can they explain them away? Nature can do anything. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. Nature can do anything. Wherever the physical world pushes the boundary a little farther beyond where they knew it up to that point, not a problem. Nature can do that. Nature can do anything. To science, it is exactly the same as Christians confronted with things they don't like. Well, God can do anything. God can do anything. Science competes with God with nature. You've got your God, He can do anything. We've got our nature, she can do anything. Standoff. Standoff. But in terms of me and the Starchild, the problem is I can't get a hearing because they just say, there's nothing to what you're doing. There's nothing to what you're doing because no matter how bizarre it all is and no matter how it stacks up, nature could do it and we don't have to pay attention to it. We do not have to pay attention to you. We do not have to pay attention to your data because nature can cover every base. One guy said to me toward the end of when I was doing this, one guy said to me, listen, I don't care if you stack up 10,000 of those differences, 10,000 of them, I'm still going to tell you nature can handle it. Nature can do it. And I do not have to and I do not want to bother with this. And he booted me out. Okay? And right then I knew this was hopeless. This was absolutely hopeless. There's only one way, and a friend told me. He said, look, there's only one thing they're going to listen to, and that's DNA. You have to get a DNA test that shows as big a difference as what you have here with these physiological differences. Because they will listen to DNA, they respect DNA. Why? Because DNA is math. It is math turned into biology, or biology turned into math, but they have great respect for that. DNA puts you on death row, DNA gets you off death row. No matter how many policemen have testified against you, if the DNA says you didn't do it, you walk. You are invulnerable if you get the right DNA answer, and that's what we needed. So, at the end of '99, I saw the skull, all that you saw with Ray and Melanie, that was in February of 1999. What you just saw, I accumulated in 1999. At the end of 1999, I was at a wall. I couldn't go any further. I had to get DNA. So, because the Starchild was 900 years old, it qualified as ancient DNA. And you have to understand, up to 50 years, that's fresh DNA. After 50 years, ancient DNA. Requires a whole different set of protocols to recover it because it's much more sensitive to contamination. Okay? You want to find out, who's the father of your child, or do a pregnancy test, or find a criminal who left this blood stain. It's easy. It's all fresh. It's right there. Easy to do. Not a problem. Ancient DNA, much tougher. But the Starchild and the other one were buried in a mine tunnel for 900 years, and that's like being in a climate-controlled storage locker. Basically, same temperature, no rain to leach minerals out of it, no sun to, it's the ideal burial circumstances for great preservation of the bone. So, a friend of mine in Canada, well, I have to say this, at the time in 1999, there were only 6 labs in the world that would do ancient DNA, only 6. I tried them all, every one of them laughed me out of the room. Not out of the room, off the phone or emails or whatever, however I contacted them. But they said, you must be kidding. You must be kidding. We wouldn't touch this thing with a 10-foot pole. I don't care what you paid us. This is ridiculous. Ancient, alien DNA. Forget about it. So I couldn't get anybody to do it that could have done the work. They could have done the work. So I told a friend about it in Canada, and he says, well, I know a guy that's opening up a new forensic lab here at the University of British Columbia. Maybe he'll do it for you. Maybe he can find what it is and get a simple answer. If he can recover nuclear DNA, that's all they were looking for, able to do, nuclear DNA. If we can get nuclear DNA, we can know if it's a human, if it's a male or a female. If you get a recovery, that's it. You know what you have, and you can stop worrying about it. And I said, okay, shoved all the chips out on the table. Let's find out what this thing is. Took it to that lab, and they said, yeah, well, we think we can do it. We'll do it for you. We think if it was buried in a mine tunnel, there should be good enough DNA there. We should be able to get a result. So they went after it, and this is what happened. They took out the first thing they took out was the occipital condyles right here, these parts. With the human, first attempt, boom, no problem. First attempt recovery, human DNA, fresh, good looking, easy, no problem. All they were looking for was nuclear. This becomes important later, but at the time, we didn't know. Then they take another piece, this right here, and they claim they get a recovery. 200 picograms out of what should have been 1,000 minimum. You shouldn't make a statement unless you get 1,000 picograms minimum. They got 200 picograms, and they said, okay, we have a result. It's XY, it's a male, it's a human male. Take it and go home. Now remember, we paid for this one, but they contaminated it. Did I say that already? They contaminated the first one. They just messed it up somehow. They didn't get a result, and they said, we contaminated it. We need another piece. We'll try again, and that's what I gave them. So they said they got a result there. We paid for this. This is on their nickel now. And so they want me to go home and just, it's a human, and that's it, and forget about it. Now, understand, it's at the University of British Columbia. The word has gotten out. They are now under severe pressure from peers. What the hell are you doing dealing with, alien UFO stuff? They're not saying that, but I'm hearing that. So it's an issue. So they say, well, okay, we'll do another and we'll take the tooth. The tooth is absolutely, this is that first x-ray I told you about, tooth is absolutely going to have prime DNA. I knew it was a mistake. I didn't want to give it, but they said, we won't do it unless you give us the tooth so that we know we'll get a recovery. I fought against giving that tooth as hard as I could, and I will always be chastised for this. Science is going to hate me for doing this, and I knew it when I did it. But at the time, my back was against the wall, and I didn't feel I had any choice. Again, miraculously, 200 picograms out of the 1,000 they need. XY, it's human. Take it and go home and forget about it. It's human. Now, in the Deep South, we have a term that describes somebody that is just done for. We call it a blowed up peckerwood. And I was a blowed up peckerwood. I had nowhere to turn here. This absolutely screwed the pooch, as the astronauts say. I was done for because I had gone on Art Bell at the time and announced this and had collected money, the $8 grand that we needed to do it, and did all that. So everybody's waiting for the answer. Everybody knows it's coming. Everybody knows when the schedule is. I have to do it. You know how it works. Rich is sitting there smiling. He knows I'm screwed. So I have to go and I have to say, this is what they say. This is what they say. I have to announce it to the world. I have to put it on my website. I have to do everything, or I cannot give the result. So I have to get there and I have to say what they say and I have to read this stuff off, and then in the best way I can, I have to say, but I think they're wrong. I think they made a mistake. And I have to say it diplomatically. I can't say, I think they just screwed me to get rid of me. I can't say that. But it turns out, really, that people in our field didn't want this to be real. This is scary for everybody. Everybody breathed a sigh of relief. Everybody, even people in the field of alternative knowledge. I couldn't get a hearing anymore. I couldn't get on radio. I couldn't, after I announced it, I couldn't get invited to speak about it. They would invite me to come speak about my human origins and the hominoids and the other stuff that I was really good at and well known for. Nobody wanted to hear about the Starchild. Starchild was old news, and I'd try to say, but I'm sure they're wrong. No, sorry. For 3 years, for the next 3 years, all of 2000, all of 2001, all of 2002, I'm swimming uphill against a really strong tide. I am hemorrhaging money, putting it on credit cards. Ran up $50,000 worth of debt, always thinking the next time somebody's going to listen, so it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And ultimately, I just had to go bankrupt, and that was it. I was a blowed up Peckerwood. So at the end of 2002, I put out an email to the list, which was about 2,000 people at that time, and I said, look, it's over, I'm done, I can't go anymore, I'm completely stymied, that's it. And then a miracle happened. The woman that's sitting out there at the table, Belinda McKenzie, wrote me an email and she said, I've recently come into some money, I've been following your case, I want to know the answer to what you have. I want to know what that thing is. Give me a price, give me a figure, and let me see if I can cover it. So by then, there were not just 6 labs doing ancient DNA recovery, there were 24, 2 whole dozen. And boy, it wasn't long before I found a pair of young men who had just started theirs, Trace Genetics at the University of California at Davis, Jason Eshelman and Rip and Molly, and they said, we'll do it. We want the business, we'll do it.